Hey guys, I'm Sal. Thanks for checking out the video. Today I'll be doing a run through of my 1992 Nissan 240SX. It's got an SR20 swap, and I'm just going to go through everything that was done to the car before I bought it, and then everything that I've done to the car in the about a year of ownership that I've had. Let's get into it. Okay, so we'll start with, I bought this car in January of 2021. Right now it's early February of 22, so I've had it for just over a year, and it has been so much fun to own. It's super fun to drive, and even though it's got some problems along with it, I think it makes it completely worth it. It was always kind of a dream car since I was a little kid. You know, you play it in the video games, you see people drifting it, and it came up for sale, and I couldn't not buy it. I bought it for $6,000, and I don't know how many miles it has on it. It has an NX 1600 gauge cluster swapped into it, so the cluster has like 250,000 miles or something, but I don't know how many are actually on the chassis. I was really looking for just a fun small car to you know, tinker on and drive on the weekends. I have my 2002 Tundra, that's my daily driver, but I miss just having a fun manual car. So I was really looking for a Miata, or I was also looking at like an old Porsche 928. So when this popped up, it was about an hour away, and I was like, oh man, I gotta go look at it. And I think it was a great buy, and I have no regrets at all. Okay, so we'll get into what the previous owners had done to the car. I don't know how many there have been. The biggest thing is the SR20 swap. For those of you who don't know, I think the SR20 came in Japan, maybe Europe, and Australia. Could be wrong on that. But it's a much more desirable motor. It's used a lot in drifting, and it's just proven to be extremely reliable, and just takes a beating. So someone imported this motor, swapped it into this car, and I'm thankful for them. But it's got the stock ECU, it's got a front mount intercooler, it's got Tomei cams and a Tomei exhaust manifold. I don't know for sure what kind of turbo it has on it. When I bought it, the guy told me it had a T28 turbo. I'll be honest, I've been trying to do more research on it to get a better idea of what that means, but from what I can gather, I think it means it's like an S14 or S15 turbo. Please tell me in the comment section if you know any better, but yeah, I was told it's a T28 turbo. I don't know for sure. It works for me, so I haven't really looked into replacing it or figured out what it is, to be honest. Next thing I want to talk about are the wheels and tires. So I don't know what brand wheels these are. They're pretty small. They're 15 by, it's got to be like by 8 or something like that. It's running 205 wide tires all around, and they're pretty narrow. I like them. Not exactly my style. I'd like them to be a little bit bigger. I think 17s look perfect on these cars, but for the time being, I think they're a really cool look, and they make the car so low. I mean, it's 15-inch wheels. It's crazy. And then, you know, like I just said, talking about the car being low, the car has Godspeed coilovers on it. So I'd love to upgrade to like BCs or something in the future, but for now, I'm rocking these, and I got no complaints. Sometimes if you go over some bumps, it's a little like, you know, boaty, but you can probably adjust the damping. I just haven't played around with it at all. Hopefully you can see on the exterior, there's the 180SX rear quarter glass that was swapped in. I don't know if it's legit or not, but it's just kind of cool to have the 180SX versus the 240SX that we got in America. Also on the interior, it came with S14 seats, which are kind of cool. I've heard that the S13 seats are not very supportive. I don't even think they look very nice, but the S14 ones are really cool. They got the cool pattern in the back, and they're actually really supportive. They really grab you in there, and I think they're sweet. I've thought about upgrading to, you know, some Recaros or something, but I'm just too happy with these, and I think they're great. And it's kind of cool that it's like a stock Nissan thing, and they look pretty good in the car as well. And then finally, it's got an NX 1600 digital gauge cluster swapped into it. So it's a popular swap for these cars. I found that the gauge clusters are kind of hard to find, so it makes them pretty desirable. So I'm thankful that the car already had that. But yeah, it's kind of cool. Instead of having like the tack and the speedo, it's actually like a digital tack with a digital speed readout in the center of it. So it's kind of unique. Again, it came from a Nissan NX 1600. I have never seen one in person. I looked it up on Wikipedia to find out what it was. But yeah, it's that dash swapped in here. It fits pretty well. It looks good. And as far as I know, all the sensors and stuff are wired up properly. So it shows all the right information. Okay, so next up we'll get into the things that I've done since I've owned the car. So I've decided to split it up into mechanical things that I've done, cosmetic things that I've done, and then interior things that I've done. So we'll start with the mechanical stuff. The first day one that I bought the car, I was driving it home and the exhaust fell off. What? So when I went and looked at the car, took it for a test drive, everything seemed good. The only red flag was the exhaust tip was held up with some chicken wire. And so we brought it up to the guy, the seller, and he was like, oh yeah, it's fine. It hasn't been any issue. It's held up the rest of the way with the real hangers. It's just the tip was sagging. So we held it up with some chicken wire. I was like, okay, it didn't do anything in the test drive, so I figured it would be fine. So bought the car, did all the paperwork, got on the road for like 2 minutes on the highway. And then, sure enough, I just hear this crazy loud, like grinding, scraping noise, like up underneath the center of the car, and I was freaking out. I had no idea what it could have been. So I pulled off, and sure enough, the exhaust fell off. The chicken wire gave out, and the exhaust fell down. So I was pretty pissed. I also felt kind of dumb for buying a car that the exhaust just fell off of. But we still had to drive a solid hour home to my house. And I just didn't feel comfortable doing that. So I called AAA and had them tow me to the nearest exhaust shop, which was like literally half a mile away. Worked out really, really well. They were super cooperative. They took it right in. It was like a Saturday night. Someone happened to be there, and they took it in. They had it ready for me in 2 days. And so I went back then Monday or whatever, and yeah, it was like $40. They welded the exhaust on, and it got me home. It wasn't centered. The welds looked like boogers. Like I don't even care. It got me home. I don't know. I felt kind of dumb. I felt dumb. I felt like I made a bad decision that first night after I paid $6,000 and I didn't even have the car with me. I just felt dumb. So once I got it home the next time, I felt much better, and I realized, you know what, we'll figure it out. It's not a huge deal. Once I got the car home, I realized it was just dumping power steering fluid everywhere. It also had a crazy exhaust leak at the outlet of the turbo. So you didn't hear any exhaust noise at the back of the car. It all came from behind the dashboard because that's where the exhaust was coming out of the turbo. So I'm like, you know what? Before I drive this around and cause any problems, run out of power steering fluid, whatever, burn a hole in the firewall, I'm just gonna put it in the garage, figure out these problems, and then I'll get it on the road once I think it's ready to drive. So I bought a steering rack rebuild kit, took the steering rack out, went to rebuild it, and the actual rack itself, like the long rod in the center of the steering rack, actually had like some divots in it. So even if I put all new seals in it, I still think it would have leaked because the actual rack itself was like pitted. So that was a real bummer. I thought I was gonna be able to rebuild it, put it back in, and save a good amount of money, plus kind of the satisfaction of rebuilding it yourself. But I ended up just ordering one from Rock Auto. I was thinking about doing like a Koru Works one. I heard that they do really good work with steering racks, but Rock Auto is just really affordable, and I only drive this once, maybe twice a week, and only around town. I don't drift it, I don't track it, so I figured the Rock Auto one would be fine for me. When I did the steering rack, I also replaced the steering rack bushings as well as the inner and outer tie rods. I just figured while I'm in there, I'll try to refresh it as good as I can. Also, when I did the power steering, refresh, I bought a new power steering reservoir by Chase Bays. No real reason, I just kind of wanted to add something really nice to the engine bay, and I think their stuff is pretty cool looking. So I also got an AFR gauge from AEM, super nice quality, and wired that up, and it started giving me some really weird issues. So I had it all figured out, started the car, and the speedometer in the car went to 300 miles an hour, car sputtered and then died. And I was like, what? And the weird thing is the gauge isn't wired into any of the factory wiring at all. It's entirely on its standalone in its own circuit. Nothing is connected to the car. So I thought maybe the alternator's not powerful enough, and it's causing some really weird like charging problems or something. So I got a new alternator from P2M on Injuku. Put that in, didn't solve the AFR issue. I also wired up my own fuse box so that, because I was thinking, well, maybe if it's tied into the 12 volt for the cigarette lighter, maybe that's affecting something else somewhere. So I just went straight from the battery to a fuse box to the gauge, and the same exact thing happened. So I was at a loss. I really thought that was going to be it. I thought it was just sucking too much power from the 12 volt system or something, and like the cigarette lighter, and that was tied in somewhere else, but it didn't solve the issue. So I'm wondering if there's some sort of electromagnetic interference from like the signal in the AFR gauge or something. I'm not sure, but my plan is to take the gauge out and just kind of like hold it away from the car and try and start it and see if the same thing happens, because I think that's a good way of testing whether the electromagnetic interference is causing these issues or not. If so, I'm going to try and buy like the wire shielding and slide it over that and see if that does anything, but I don't know. Like I said, I don't know enough about it to diagnose it, but it's something I want to try and work on in the next couple months. Okay, so that's all the mechanical stuff I've done that I can remember. Okay, so moving into cosmetic things, one of the first things I did right up front here, I bought a Nissan emblem for the front of the car. It didn't have one, it just had these like 2 holes for the mounting points, and I just thought it looked like crap. I also painted the coil pack cover. I don't know what the heck happened to the old one, but it had overspray on it, and it was black and whatever else. So I really like the look of the clean, like silver with the black lettering. So I went through, spray painted it, taped off the letters, and I think it came out really nice, and it really kind of freshens up the engine bay a little bit. I also bought the Auto Collect Storm front bumper guides and fender braces. So the front bumper guides, I think it's, I forget what the English Tune is the company that took over Auto Collect Storm, but they did incredible things for this front bumper. It sagged so bad, and it was really such an eyesore. I was kind of embarrassed driving it around with how much it sagged. And then I installed those bumper guides, and I mean, you can see it fits incredibly well. So I can't recommend that enough. And then the fender braces, I don't know, they reinforce the fenders, make it feel a little stiffer. I don't know, I don't regret buying it, but I don't think they're worth $50 or whatever I paid for them. Next cosmetic thing I did was the wiper arms. They were just like the chrome underneath was starting to show, and they just kind of looked like crap. So I took them off, and I actually sanded them down and spray painted them black. I used like an engine high heat coating on them because I figured they might be baking in the sun at some point. So I put that on, and it just made them look so much better. I'm really happy with how they came out. And then finally, I didn't really know what category to put this in, but I bought new door strikers for both sides. The old ones, the cylinder that like the door latches to was just wobbling around. So I got new ones. They look super clean, and the doors close a lot easier. They're not super easy where you can just kind of like nudge it and it swings closed and latches, but you don't have to like slam it anymore and take 3 tries to get the door closed. Okay, next we'll move into the interior. One of the first things I did when I bought the car was get a new steering wheel. The one that it came with was Jimmy Up steering wheel, which I had never heard of the brand. I looked it up. It looks pretty nice, but it's just not my style. The one that was in there was like gold and all glossy and stuff, and it was cool, but not really my style. So I actually went, and I've always kind of wanted an Alcantara steering wheel. I never even held one, so I wanted to give it a shot, and I bought a Sparco Alcantara steering wheel, and I think it looks incredible. I think it looks really good in the car, and I like it. I think I wish I had gone with leather. I just like the feel of it better for, like a around town car. I have no doubt that on a track with gloves and everything, Alcantara is great. But I don't know, I'm just not a huge fan of it around town. I have no regrets. I think it's cool, and I'm glad that I gave it a shot. But if I get another steering wheel in the future, it's going to be a leather one. At the same time that I did the steering wheel, I also got a new Alcantara shift boot to match. The steering wheel's got the yellow stripe, so I want to get a shift boot with some yellow stitching. I think it came out really good, and it matches the steering wheel perfectly. The car came with a Tomei shift knob, and it's cool. I don't mind it, but I kind of wanted to. I found one on eBay, and it was like a Nismo, more OEM style with like the baseball stitching on it and the leather, and I was sold. I thought it was so cool. I put that in, and it really kind of completed everything you touch while you're driving. On the topic of the shifter, the car came with a stock shifter, and it was okay. The throws were long. It's a stock shifter from a 1992 car, so it wasn't great, but I was just having a really hard time finding first gear sometimes. So I decided to go with an ISR short throw shift kit. I made a whole video about it. I'll link that in the top right corner, but I ended up replacing it with a GK Tech short throw shifter. I've been driving with it for a few weeks now, and I like it worlds better than the ISR one. It feels like OEM plus, and the shifts are crisp, but there's no vibration, there's no rattling or anything, and I'm really, really happy with it. One of the other things I did when I first bought the car was repair the cracked dash. It had a few big cracks in it, and I never repaired a dash before, so I figured I'll take it out, try and fix it up, get it looking pretty good. So at the time I knew I was going to do the Alcantara steering wheel, the Alcantara shift boot, and I said, you know what, I'm going to try flocking the dash. The first time I did it, I didn't really know what I was doing, and it didn't come out very good. You could see spots where it was actually like running because I put too much down, and then other spots where I didn't put enough flocking material, so it was just really thin, and you can kind of see the plastic dash under the vinyl underneath it. So I just wasn't happy with it. So I ended up sanding it all down, and which was a huge pain in the butt. Would not recommend it, and reflocked the whole thing. It's not perfect. It's not. I wouldn't even say it's great, but it's good, and it gets the job done. I think if I did it a third time, I probably could have done it really well. I probably could have got it to 98% or something like that. But for now, I'm really happy with it, and it's always a talking point. Either people have never heard of flocking, and they're like, what the heck is that? Or people think it's how the car came in the 90s. They're like, that's crazy, the car came with like a carpet dash. And I'm like, well, actually no. And then the people who do know what flocking is, they kind of respect the time and effort that goes into doing it. So I kind of like it. I know some people say it looks messy because sometimes the fibers go every which way and whatnot. And I found it also attracts a lot of dust. You can't really clean it super well, but I don't really care. I think it looks cool, and I'm glad I did it. It was a good experience. Let's see, I also removed the radio. It had like this super old Pioneer head unit in it, and the screen was cracked and everything else. So I don't really listen to music, so I took it out and replaced it with I actually found like OEM Nissan block-off plate, and then like a little cubby hole that goes and fills in the doubled-in hole. All the wiring's still there. I could put a new one back in if I felt like it, but for now I'm really happy with just having the cubby and the block-off plate. I think it looks really clean, and I would never use the radio anyways. Let's see, I also removed the rear seat belts. So I know it sounds kind of silly, like why would you take out those seat belts, but in the rear quarter glass, it was this big, bulky, like the retractor wheel for the seatbelt itself. It was just kind of like sitting in the glass, and the cover was falling off of it, and I just thought it looked really bad. So no one is ever going to sit in these back seats. They are tiny. So I just decided to take out the seat belts. It really cleaned up that back glass, and you know, weight savings, because that's really important. I also got new floor mats. I think these are NRG floor mats. They just say 240SX on them. I also replaced the rear view mirror in the car. I'll link the video in the top right corner. I did a whole video about replacing it. And finally, one of the biggest things that I did to the car was I got new keys made. So the key that the car came with, it was all stripped out, like barely even had any like nubs on it. So it wouldn't unlock the doors, and the driver door, the key actually broke off in the lock. So I got some tweezers, pulled it out, and that key was in really good shape. It still had all the nubs on it and everything. So what I ended up doing was ordering a Nissan OEM key blank, and then I brought the broken off nub with you know, all the teeth on it, and then the key that actually started the car with barely any teeth on it, to a local locksmith, and they were great. They were able to, you know, take both of those and look at it. They couldn't like put it in a machine and replicate it, but they were actually able to look at it and come up with the key code just from looking at it. It was very impressive. And they cut me a new key in the Nissan blank that unlocked both the doors and started the car. So that was really nice. I'm really happy I got new keys, and now I feel more safe bringing the car out. I can lock it and not just leave it sitting there unlocked. So yeah, that's everything I've done to the interior of the car, everything cosmetic that I've done, and then also a bunch of the mechanical things that I've done. I have got a lot of plans for the car, and there's still a lot of things that are broken and need to be addressed. So it is too much. So I'm making a whole another video about things that are still wrong with the car and my plans for the future. So stay tuned for that. So anyways, there's gonna be a whole lot of this car on the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.